Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Focus on Liberia, I want to introduce you to a young man, Yakasah Wehyee, who was born around Stanicole in Nimba County. He's made his move, emigrating to the United States, and he's been doing exploits. This time, he is first, he's on the city council of Falcon Heights in Minnesota, and he's not stopping there. He's going for the House of Representatives, and that's why we are here to discuss. I want to welcome you again to Mr. Yakasah Wehyee. Yakasah, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And again, we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Mr. Yakasah Wehyee. He is soon to be Dr. Yakasah Wehyee. He's still pursuing his PhD, and he's doing some things in Minnesota there that we want to talk about tonight. Again, my brother, we want to welcome you to Focus on Liberia for the first time. We also want to offer you a bottle of water to say welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll do one better. I got me an Izzy right here.
Right. Great. And again, we want to welcome our viewers and to the show, Focus on Liberia. We want to focus tonight on Mr. Wehyee, who is just like most of us, came from Liberia, and now he is making some headways in the American community, realizing the American dream. Uh, Let me let you talk a little bit more. I know you came here as a little boy, fleeing the carnage in our country.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that, how you came here, when you came, and how it has been growing up in North Minnesota.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, thank you everyone who's logged on, everyone who's going to be viewing this. I'm really excited to talk to everyone. So, like Dennis said, I was born in Liberia, but of course, when I was a baby, there was a civil war going on that displaced many Liberians, including my own family, and we moved to Ivory Coast, and so that's where we actually lived on the refugee camp in Ivory Coast. And I came to the U.S. when I was about six years old, and I grew up in North Minneapolis. But you wanted to know a little bit more about my experience in Africa itself. Obviously, growing up in refugee camp life, it was tough. It was difficult, right? We never knew when our next meal would be. But one thing we had was a very strong sense of family, and so we really hung on to that, and that brought us together. And through the support of our extended family and our immediate family, we were able to survive. And that's really the testament of my story. But I came to the U.S. when I was about six, and I grew up in North Minneapolis.
Good.
Um,
We'll get to the U.S. I still want
okay,
a little
okay,
bit more.
okay,
Where
okay.
in Africa was that, Danane?
Yes, that was down in there. Yes.
Right. I'm very much familiar with that story because I myself I sought refuge in Guinea, that's
Hmm.
in Ivory Coast, Danane, in Nigeria, Oro refugee camp, and in Ghana,
Okay.
Bujumbura refugee camp. So I'm a West
Nice.
African guy. But
Okay.
tell me a little bit more, so I know what it looks like. To but
Yeah.
unlike you, I mean, like me, you are a child. So
Hmm.
I don't think you really understood what was going on. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So you're right, right? I was so young that a lot of things didn't fully register. But it was interesting because obviously we were Liberians living in a foreign country in Ivory Coast, and Liberians, we predominantly speak English, but of course we also speak our native dialect. In fact, I think many Liberians that grew up in the rural part of Liberia, like I did, they mostly spoke their native dialects, and so um, you know, growing up in Ivory Coast or living in Ivory Coast, we didn't really mingle too much with the Ivorians because at least I didn't at that particular stage because I didn't really speak French, right? So So English was not, we spoke English, but English was not the primary language that we spoke. We spoke Gil, which is what my ethnic group is, Dan. And but I don't know. It's kind of difficult to kind of to say in detail, just because I was so young.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was really about hanging out with family, hanging out with friends. I was really into karate stuff, so I used to play in the dirt all the time with my what's it called? The beer bottle tops.
Yeah.
I used to play with those like that, and we used to play marble in the sand. I don't know. I can tell
Yeah.
maybe a couple of specific stories, but otherwise, in terms of the general narrative, obviously it had its challenges, but it also had its rewards. One of my favorite things that we used to do was, so I come from a very big family. So I was one of the youngest people in my family, and I have a lot of older sisters and a couple older brothers and a lot of cousins and things like that. So one of the things I used to really enjoy was, sitting around the fire with them at night and listening to stories. They used to tell really fun stories about the spider and poor boy Jack and a whole bunch of other cool folk stories that I used to really enjoy listening to. And the other thing that we used to really do, that I used to really enjoy, was listening to music and dancing. We Liberian people would love to dance. And so my family is really no different. That's one of the ways that we actually got through the hard times was, putting on some kind of music and just dancing to the music. Ever since I was really young, I was always very sensitive to music and very sensitive to music lyrics in particular. And I think I used to connect at a very high level to music. I would listen to songs like I don't know if you know this song, but it's called Han Pile. That was my favorite song, Han Pile. And it was really about the Liberian Civil War and how the guy named Peter fought in the war, and as he was dying, his request to meet his loved ones and all these different things. And for most kids, that would kind of go over people's heads. They wouldn't really relate to that sort of story. But for some reason, that song really stuck a chord with me, and I really used to really enjoy that song. And in fact, it's still one of my favorite songs to this day. So those are some of the things that I remember growing up in Ivory Coast. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. If I had to refresh your memory on the story, like the Spider story, Spider was a greedy guy.
Yes.
So he went. There were two villages. They were all having parties, and so he signed up for one and said, "Well, I'm going to eat to this place," and then he signed up for the other place. He said, "Well," but he was confused. He didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, I'm going to tie the rope on me. So when the food is ready on this side, just pull this so that I'll know and come."
Yeah.
Fortunately for Spider, both dinner got ready at the same time. They started pulling. And the end of the story is that's why Spider has a theme with, because they were pulling both at the same time. So how long did you stay in Ivory Coast, and what was it like coming over to the United States?
I'm not sure the specific years. I think I would say maybe between 3 and 4 years. I want to say 3 or 4 years. Yeah, because I remember the first couple years of my life, I think I lived in my grandma's village in Yole. And then we crossed over to the Ivory Coast, the Ivorian border, and we stayed there for a few years before I came here. But when I came, I didn't come with my immediate family, so I came with my aunt and her family. So my immediate family, they stayed back, and then when the war came in Ivory Coast, then they moved to Guinea, and they were there until they immigrated to Australia as well. But that's kind of how I came over.
All right. Fast forward, you're in the United States as a young man. I believe you went to school. Walk me through that journey quickly.
Yeah. So growing up in Minnesota, it was very interesting. Obviously, it was quite different from life in Ivory Coast, life in Liberia. But here again, I was able to lean on my community, particularly the friends that I developed in my neighborhood and things like that. it had its challenges again, right? Because I was a black man growing up in a predominantly white society. Um, not to say that Minneapolis itself was a predominantly white society, but America at large is a predominantly white society. And of course, we know about a lot of the institutional barriers that young black men growing up in the inner city they face, and I was exposed to a lot of those same challenges. But again, being able to lean on my community and really being able to remember that I was someone that came from a family that had big expectations for me. My family always saw me and treated me as someone that was meant to do better things in the world. And so growing up, when I fell off the tracks a little bit and I could have really gotten in a lot of trouble, I kind of remembered that, my dad, my mom, my sisters, my brothers, they all had, big hopes and expectations for me. And so I wanted to really lean on that to pull me up and give me encouragement to do better. And so around, I want to say, eighth grade in middle school, I just kind of came to the realization that, if I were continue to go down the path that I was heading towards, that, the outcome was not going to be very positive. I was not going to be living up to the promise that and the hopes that my family had for me. And so I wanted to really change my life. And so I was able to move in with a different family. And there I had an opportunity to explore and I guess benefit from things that I didn't have access to before. And so I got involved in activities like speech and student council and things like that. And I realized that I had I guess a gift for communicating with people, and I had a passion and a love for community service. And so that really drove me to seeing politics as a potential avenue to be able to have the impact on society that I heard a lot of friends and family members talk about when they talked about my dad. My dad was someone who was a politician in Liberia as well. He was the president of Bowenquila district, and he was also a police officer in the police force. But of course, when the Civil War came, he fled along with us, and he left all of that behind. But yet, the legacy that he left behind was so impactful that even up to now, when I'm in the community, people always identify me as my dad's son and all these different things. And so I always admired that, and I wanted to kind of leave a legacy like that for my kid. I just became a dad a couple of weeks ago, and so I wanted to leave a legacy like that. So when my son looks back, we can say, "Hey, my dad was a pretty cool guy." You know what I mean? And then ultimately, just to leave the world just a little better than what it was when I came into it.
Excellent. So and congratulations being a dad.
Thank you.
So you graduated of St. Francis High School in
Yes.
Minnesota,
Hmm.
and went to Hamlin University, and you became you said the first generation college graduate.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
tell me about that.
No, it was interesting. The thing is, I didn't grow up in a family that a lot of people went to college in, and so navigating that was a bit challenging, right? Because you're essentially forging a path that no one else in the family has forged before. And so there was a lot of trial and error. You take some classes that maybe you shouldn't have taken because you didn't know any better, or
Yeah.
you make certain choices that maybe if someone ahead of you knew and had a conversation with you and sort of guided you, you wouldn't make. But ultimately, I was able to get through it. I actually double majored, so I have I have a way of making things a little more complicated for myself than they need to be. A lot of people would just go to the university and get their degree in their one major, and that's that. But silly me, I wanted to do two. I wanted to double major, so I double major in political science and history, and then I balance all of that with working two jobs at any given time, and also I was also very involved in a lot of community and student activities and things like that. So I always like to keep myself busy. But yeah, with all of that, that's kind of how I was able to finish, college. I was lucky to even be able to finish on time within the 4 year mark, but I did it, and I was very proud of myself. And I think most importantly, I think it really made my family proud. And so, really seeing my family proud is one of the things that drives me. I think every kid wants to bring joy to their family and bring joy to their
Yeah.
community and things like that. And I really live for those type of moments. And so I try to do that as much as I can.
Wow. Political science and history double major. Now you are into your PhD program. What are you studying on the PhD level?
I study political science. Yep. I'm doing a PhD in political science with a focus on Liberian politics, particularly with a focus on the True Whig Party, trying to understand how the True Whig Party came to exist and survive for as long as it did. Because I think a lot of people don't understand that the True Whig Party was actually the first single party regime in the world, and it's outlasted any other single party regime in the world, like, ever. And so, it really raises very interesting questions about how did that regime get established, and how did that regime survive for as long as it did. And so those are the questions that I try to grapple with in my research.
You finding those answers?
Huh? Am I finding those
Are you
answers? I hope
are
so.
you finding? Okay. All right. And
I
I
hope
want to
so.
also I want to also mention that you are married. Tell me a little
Yes.
bit about your family.
Yeah, so I met my wife actually in college at Hamlin, and she saw me one time at a function. She saw me across the room, and then her eyes lit up. She had stars in her eyes, and she just fell over. She didn't know what to do with herself. She said, "Oh my gosh, who is that handsome young man over there?" And so, of course, I'm kidding. But yeah, so we met at Hamlin, and we started talking. And she actually left for a semester to go study abroad. Um, and okay, no, actually, what happened was she left to go to India because she's from India. She left to go to India for the summer, and then right immediately after that, the fall semester she spent in England. So we didn't see each other for a good maybe 9 months or so. But then when she came back, we got reconnected, and then we started dating. And as they say, the rest is history.
And you are both married now with one child.
Yes, we're married with one child, and two pets, a cat and a
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, I like this dog. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this is Mr. Yakasah Wehyee. He is a councilman on the Falcon Heights City Council, and he's not stopping there, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. How did you get on a city council in that place? And first of all, you already told me about your drive to politics. How did that
Yes.
happen that you thought going to city council was a way to go?
Well, so yep, like you said, I already talked about my motivation, right? This is something that was very innate to who I am. I've always just wanted to serve my community. But obviously, I wanted to get my dissertation done and get my PhD first before I took any steps. But the thing about the PhD is that it can be a very lonely process because you're in the books all the time. You don't have a lot of time to socialize and to get out into the community and things like that. And so for somebody like me who is so driven by being involved in the community, that just became very tough. And I actually went through a mild depression at a certain point after I passed my qualifying exams. I think my wife noticed that, and she told me to actually she's the one that told me to run for the city council position. But mind you, the city council was never on my radar initially because I really wanted to get my PhD and then maybe run for a state office. But then when my wife told me to run for the office, she gave a lot of very good reasons, and we did the research, and we discovered that it was an open seat, that there weren't a lot of people vying for the office, and so and there was in a very small community, so we could have realistically door knocked and talked to the residents that we needed to talk to get people to come out to vote for us and things like that. And so once we sort of saw the landscape, we started to put a plan together. Once we had the plan together, then I was comfortable enough to announce, and that's how I ended up running. In terms of the other underlying motivations for running for the city council, I was really invigorated by the the desire to help the community move past and recover from a police involved killing that happened in our community. The police back in 2016 killed a young man by the name of Philando Castile in the city of Falcon Heights. And so the community was still in the process of recovering from that. And, I thought that as an African American, as an African man, that I could help our city heal from that situation. And so that was one of the underlying reasons why I wanted to get involved. And then I also wanted to work on other policies such as the environment and infrastructure and so forth. And I've been very privileged in the few years that I've been on the council to really make some really serious impact on each of those fronts.
How was the campaign like, and who voted for you?
Well, obviously, I got a majority of the votes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on the council. In fact, I think I got the most votes up to that point than most any other candidates that had ran up to that point. So, I think we ran a very skilled campaign. It was very professional. It was very low key, compared to some of the other bigger campaigns that were taking place around us. But that's just the nature of being in a small community. But overall, the experience was great. We had great conversations with community members, and I was also fortunate enough to be running in a city that many previous or former teachers or professors of mine from my Hamlin days, and I even had an elementary school teacher that lived in the community as well. And these people really became my champions, and they talked to their neighbors about me. And so with all of that and the ground game that we ran, we were able to secure a lot of votes and to ultimately win the seat.
And what were they saying about you? What was the Yakasah advantage?
Oh, the Yakasah advantage was that Yakasah could communicate with people from different backgrounds. So obviously I'm Liberian, but I grew up in a predominantly African American community in North Minneapolis. And there I went to school with Hmong people. I went to school with Somali people, with Hispanics. And then in high school, I moved to St. Francis, Minnesota, where I sort of got adopted into a white family. And I went to a predominantly white school. I lived in a white family. And so all of these different experiences gave me the tools and the ability to communicate with people from different backgrounds very comfortably. And I think that was essentially what the community needed in order to be able to not talk past each other, right? To be able to speak to each other and understand each other. And I was able to sort of present myself and be perceived as and accepted as someone that could serve as a unifier in the community.
Yeah.
So I think that was the Yakasah advantage. And then on top of that, I was told that I have a very nice smile. So I used to flash the smile anytime I get the chance.
That's what politicians do. So you've been on the city council for how long now, and what has the impact been?
I've been on the city council. I'm in my third year. The impact has been very good. We've made very big changes in the very short period of time that I've been on council. I think we've been faced with some of the biggest challenges that anyone's ever faced in such a short span of time. So just to give you some examples, we were able to bring in 125 units of affordable housing in the city of Falcon Heights, which is a really big deal because Falcon Heights is a community that's fully developed. So that means there's not a lot of extra space to build new housing. So what we ended up doing was there was a building that used to be an office building that became vacant. And so rather than just tearing that building down, we ended up converting that building into affordable housing. And we brought in 125 affordable housing units to the city of Falcon Heights through that process. So that was very rewarding work. I also was able to help pass what is known as a welcoming city policy. And welcoming city policies are basically policies that, the way that we wrote ours, at least, it prevented the city from withholding resources from immigrants, from people based on their ability or disabilities, and their racial backgrounds and so forth. And it basically said too that, especially in the age of Donald Trump, when Donald Trump was trying to withhold federal monies from communities, we said that, and trying to use ICE to go after immigrants, we said that, look, we're not going to work with the federal government if they don't have a properly issued warrant to go after certain people. And so that was a very powerful statement that we're able to make through the welcoming city policy. And that's something that I was able to champion on the city council. Of course, I can go on and on about some of the other things that we've done, but I don't want to bore you with additional details.
Right. So how do you, because it's very important, right? How you assess the needs of the people, say, well, this is what the people need, and let me move ahead to solve this problem.
Right.
How
That's
do
a
you
great
do that
question.
assessment to really
Well,
see where to focus?
yeah, so there are a couple avenues that one can pursue, right? One is just independent research. I'm a researcher, so that kind of comes naturally for me. And so what we did was we went online, we went to the city's website, we read a bunch of minutes from past meetings, we looked at the comprehensive plan, and from there we were able to see what previous council members had been talking about, and ultimately what the community had committed to in terms of their long-term strategic goals. And then we wanted to make sure that those strategic goals were not outdated, right? That they still spoke to the community's interest. And so the next step was to then meet with key stakeholders in the community, residents, people that have influence in the community, former elected officials, just your average neighbor, your average citizens, and just had conversations with them and just listen, right? Ask them, like, look, what issues do you care about? Why do you care about these issues? And then from there, you can start to develop an image of what the community needs are, and develop a platform that speaks to the community's needs. So that's the strategy that we employed when we ran for the city council, and that's essentially the strategy that we're employing as we run for the House of Representatives as well. Because one thing you don't want to do is, be running on a platform that doesn't speak to the community's needs, right? Because when you run to be a representative, you're not running to represent just yourself. You're running to represent people. And so if your message is out of line with the people that you're attempting to serve, then the likelihood of you actually being elected diminishes.
What is your support? How does it look like in the Liberian community? I don't know how many of you in Falcon Heights, but what is the level of support you're getting from fellow Liberians?
Yeah. So if I'm to be frank with you, I think, this is an area of opportunity. I think that I've been kind of, I've been less than pleased, I would say, with the level of excitement that I'm currently receiving from the Liberian community, because I think that this is a very important opportunity for the Liberian community, because we live in a democracy, right? And in a democracy, communities are given respect if they can demonstrate an ability to elect people, particularly elect people that speak directly to their interests.
Yeah.
And so unless we can do that as a community, it's going to be very difficult for people in decision-making circles to take our community as seriously as we should be taken. And so I understand the gravity of that, and I guess I've been having a bit of a challenge in that regard to sort of convey the importance to the Liberian community. And so I have some support. So let's be clear that there are members of the community that do support me, but I think there's still an opportunity there to grow the base of support within the Liberian community, which is one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled to do this program because I hope that, by speaking directly to the Liberian people, they will understand how closely, my story is to theirs, and hopefully invigorate them to get involved in the campaign in a more robust manner.
Yeah, and one of those supporters is Mr. Cisse Goya, a teacher
Yeah.
in that area, and he's one of your champions. I
Yes.
mean, he talks about you as if this is the guy or younger brother, and he wants to see him succeed. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. But to be honest, it was from Cisse Goya that I first heard about you.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason maybe the Liberian community really does not understand the importance of being in these kind of places, or what is it that you think that is needed so that we feel the importance that is very important for us Liberians living in the United States to vie for public offices and even support those who are doing these things already.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said, that, we live in a society where decision makers listen to people that show up, people that vote, people that can demonstrate political capital. And the way you demonstrate political capital is being able to put your resources behind a candidate that you're passionate about, right? And so unless we can do that, then we really don't have a voice at the table. We really don't have a voice at the table. We don't have, at least in the state of Minnesota, we don't have someone in the legislature that can speak directly to the needs of Liberians. That can be a direct channel to the Liberian community, and so I think it's important for that reason. And I think it's really a matter of educating some of our community members about how important politics is. I think in African politics, in Liberian politics in particular, I think we're used to politicians that get elected and they just kind of exploit their office and don't really maintain a connection to the community, and um, don't really come back to the community to talk to the community and to sort of assess the community's needs and things like that. And I think because of that stigma, people project those same sort of ideas on folks that are running for public office. And I understand that, right? Because politicians haven't had a very good reputation for a very long period of time. But I hope that my various experiences will show rather than tell, right? Will actually demonstrate that I am in it for the right reasons. I care very deeply about my community, my Liberian community, and I care very deeply about my um, my district. I care very deeply about the people of Minnesota, um, as well as my Liberian community. So, and I just have a deep love and passion for community service, and I very much value being able to deliver on the issues that I care about.
That is very important. And sometimes some of the issues maybe this feel that okay, but Yakasah is on the city council, and so he doesn't connect with Liberians anymore. What is your own involvement in the Liberian community so that people know what you're doing and they can support you?
That's a good question. So, of course, with the thousands of things that I have going on, has been okay. So let me give you a background. So I live in Falcon Heights, and Falcon Heights is quite a ways away from the epicenter of the Liberian community here in Minnesota, which happens to be the Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Crystal, that general area, right? And so it does become kind of difficult to commute from Falcon Heights to those areas when they have programs all the time. But when possible, I do make myself available as much as possible. Apart from that, prior to my involvement or getting into my PhD program, I actually used to be the secretary of UNICO, which happens to be one of the largest organizations of Liberians here in Minnesota. And I did that for a very short period of time because obviously I got accepted into the PhD program, so I couldn't balance all of that. And so that's my level of involvement. And then I also used to serve on the board of UDS, United Distant Stars, which is a really cool organization that provides vocational training to Liberian young people in Liberia itself. Um, and so I used to serve on the board for I think about 2 years, or at least 1.5 years, and did very good work with them. So that's my level of involvement. And of course, I do research on Liberian politics and history and things like that. So yeah, that's what I have done in the Liberian community, and I look forward to doing more and working in collaboration with the community.
And as someone who studied Liberian politics, most of the time we are more excited about politics in Liberia than politics here, especially when on the local level.
Right.
So if it is politics about Representative Yaka Koluba in Monrovia, or the politics on who becomes the next president, I mean, we are really excited. As someone who researched these things, do you know why?
Yeah, I think the reason is simply because of perception. People don't think that what happens at the state level or even at the local level in America has a material impact on them, right? People are still very much connected to, at least they feel a sentimental connection to their home country, right? Liberia. Because, obviously, as you know, there are a lot of Liberians that kind of see their life here as a temporary thing, right? People plan on going back to Liberia at some point. And so that's why, a lot of people in the diaspora have invested in homes and things like that back home, buying, establishing businesses and everything else because they're preparing themselves for life after retirement, right? When they go back. And so that's kind of where people's focus is. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, we obviously have another home and where we live in the diaspora, whether that's in Atlanta, whether that's in New York, whether that's in Minnesota, these communities matter too. And in some ways, they probably matter a little bit more because they impact our day to day, right?
Yeah.
So the policies that are passed in Minnesota impact our ability, for instance, to be able to send money back home to help a family there or whatever have you, right? And so we do have to pay very close attention to what's happening where we live currently.
Yeah.
And to neglect that is to really give away power. It is to say, look, you guys go over there and make your decisions, and we don't have any role to play in this. But actually, we do have a role to play in this. And if that is your position, right? If your position is that the policies that are being made in the area that you reside don't impact you, then you don't have the right to complain, right? That you can't complain that, oh, your taxes are too high, or you can't complain that the roads are bad, or you can't complain that you can't get a job, because the way in which you can voice your opinion is to get involved in politics of where you are. That's where the rubber hits the road. And so that's why it's so important for Liberians in the diaspora to be engaged in their local communities, as well as keeping their minds and their attention to what's happening back home in Liberia.
I agree, and I like that answer because we've not really been able to see the connection. So, I mean, imagine I came from a place I never worked before. Now I'm in a place I'm working, everything is fine. So I really don't think that the local politics are impacting me a lot. I'm going to my job, I'm coming back. Some don't even go to the local PTA meeting to see how their kids are doing because the buses take them, bring them back, and so we really don't have things to worry about. But the impact is great, and even if we want to make meaningful impact back in Liberia, we really have to plant our feet here to be able to accomplish something, be in the government, be even on the federal level, and then we can make that much needed impact. Other than that, we'll be crawling to the feet of Jack Reed and other people. I mean, they are helping us, but why are we satisfied with what they give us instead of we ourselves being present at the table? So that's a big deal. Now you are running to be representative. why are you leaving the city council? Why and going up? What's the need to? Why you think you
Sorry,
should
you
leave
broke
now
up.
and do something? Yeah, no, I'm saying now you are running
Sorry, what
to
was
be
the question? You broke up.
right. You are running as a representative in 66A. Okay,
Hmm.
you have a job on the city council, and you want something big. What's driving that?
Yeah, but really, it's not even so much that I want something big. I think it's more so about trying to leave, trying to impact my community, trying to serve my community. And one thing about leadership is that when you're called to serve and you have the skill set, the ability to serve, you should take up the opportunity. And that's essentially what I'm doing. Since I've been on the city council, because of the work that I've done, that I uh, mentioned earlier, a lot of community members have been asking me to lend my service in other ways, and the other way is to run for this particular office. Um, and so it's really just an opportunity to continue to serve. That's really all it is. Um, and I am very, very blessed and very excited about the opportunity and the prospect to be able to impact my community and to be able to serve my community continuously. And so I think maybe the question that you're trying to ask is what sort of specific issues I'm going to try to address. And if I'm
I'm not.
understanding your question.
Yeah, I'm not even there yet,
Okay,
and I
you're
will
not
get
there
to
yet.
that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll get to
okay,
that. So, what does it require to go for the
okay. That's
for the state office for Minnesota representative, the state
yeah.
house?
So there's a citizenship requirement. You have to be a citizen. Of course, you have to be a resident of the district for at least 6 months prior to running. Um, there is an age requirement. I believe you have to be at least 21 years old to run. And of course, I meet all those requirements, and that's basically it, right? And with that, if you feel you have the resume, you feel you have the tools to be able to run a successful campaign, then you can run. So those are basically the requirements.
In terms of money and
Oh, sorry, you're
whatever.
muted.
Yeah, I say in terms of money and the level of rapport, whatever is needed,
Yeah.
what is required on that level? Do you need a lot of money? You need to know more
Okay.
people.
Absolutely. So yeah, you definitely need to know people. Um, you need to you have to be able to raise money. That's just the fact of the matter in politics in general, right? It's not just an American thing. That this is just anywhere anywhere anyone runs for office, money has to be a part of it. And so this is one of the ways in which the community, excuse me, can support me, can support candidates that they feel connections a connection to. And so obviously for me, you can donate to my campaign by going to my campaign website at yakasahwehyee.com, and then clicking on the donate button there, and you can make a contribution that way. So yeah, being able to fundraise, having a connection to stakeholders, and doing some community outreach to the residents in one's district or precinct to get them out to vote. Those are the primary things that one needs to do. And then with the money that you raise, you need to be able to buy campaign literature. You need to be able to purchase ads to be able to get your word out there to the community, buy things like buttons, lawn signs, and so forth. And even campaign T-shirts so that when people are out door knocking for you, people can identify them with your campaign, and things like that.
Do you have to buy a bag of rice and give money to the voters, or do other things like we see in Liberia?
No, no, you don't. No, God, that would be like bribing, right? You
They don't
can't, you
ask you
can't.
for anything. Say, because when you have a campaign rally in Liberia, according to those who run, after the speeches, they say, "Where is item 13 on the list?" Is what do you have for us?
Yeah, no. So the goods that we deliver to the voters comes in the form of policy, right? So we, I'm not running to pass out a bag of rice, right? That's a very small and very immediate um thing. Like it, so it won't get you far, right? Once your bag of rice finishes, then what? You know what I mean? And so the type of things that we're trying to do are long-term policy things that will impact the individual, but also the generation after the individual. So some a policy like investing in the roads, for example, that is something that you will benefit from because you're able to commute to and from work without your car being destroyed and so forth. And you can obviously be able to work and make money for your family. Um, investing in things like education, giving people the tools to be able to learn the traits that they need, the skill sets that they need in order to be able to contribute to the economy and to be able to sustain themselves without depending on the government for a handout and things like that. Investing in early childhood. So all these different types of big policy things. That's where that's where the goods is, and that's what we should be looking for in terms of holding our politicians accountable. Right? We shouldn't care if somebody's giving out chocolates or giving out a bag of rice, because at the end of the day, once the bag of rice is finished, your condition is still the same. Right? You're still going back home to your shanty house. You still don't have a job. You're still waiting for the next politician to ask them for a bag of rice, right? So the goal should be, well, what sort of policies are being instituted to allow me to be able to help myself, right? To sustain myself as an individual and to sustain my community. And so that's what we try to do.
Are you running on any party ticket? Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent?
Yeah, I'm seeking the DFL endorsement, the Democratic endorsement, and so tentatively, our party convention is going to be March 27th, and so there, we get to make our case to the delegates, and try to give them a compelling story and a compelling reason to support our campaign.
I always get asked this question. They said, why is it that many Black people or African Americans or African immigrants are, rolling with the Democratic Party instead of the Republican Party? They say we are conservative, just like the Republicans. So do you know why? Why most of us go Democrat instead of Republican?
Yeah, well, this has its roots in obviously in American history, particularly American history as it pertains to race relations. Um, you know, after after FDR, what ended up happening was that folks that used to align. So, okay, before FDR, a lot of blacks actually used to align with the Republican Party
Yeah.
because you will hear the story, right? The Republican Party was the party of Lincoln, which freed the slaves. And actually, so the Republican Party was actually viewed more favorably in the black community than the Democratic Party because they were at that time more friendly to African Americans. They were advocating for policies that were more friendly to African Americans. But what ended up happening was after you know um, Franklin Roosevelt became president with the New Deal, the coalition started to change, right? Um, and so with that, a lot of the the former conservatives that used to be in the Democratic Party started going over to the Republicans, and so the parties started sorting themselves out to where um, a lot of people that sort of identify themselves as moderates or as liberals started moving more into the Democratic Party, and then those that identify themselves more as conservatives moved more into the Republican Party, and then ultimately, with that, the Democratic Party started being perceived as the party that supported, issues pertaining to equality, things like that. And so that's why you see not only African Americans, but you see other groups of people like LGBT and so forth coming into the Democratic camp, because the Democratic Party now has become the party of diversity, has become the party of, of the minority and so forth. And so that's why you see a lot of African Americans going to that party in particular. You got to remember too that the Democratic Party was the party that delivered voting rights for African Americans. It was the party that delivered, the right to go to same schools, school integration, and things like that. So I think those are the reasons why, the Democratic Party is being seen. It's been the favored party among the two parties.
So what specifically are you running on? If you were talking to me to vote for you.
Yeah. No, so I'm running essentially to work on issues that I've cared about for a long time, issues that the district cares about, such as education, such as affordable housing. And I gave you the anecdote earlier that we're able to actually bring in affordable housing. So I have real tangible experience working on some of these issues, right? I'm running again to work on public safety. I grew up in a community where, some of my friends got murdered. Some of my friends got, put in jail and so forth, and from gun violence and things like that. And I really want to be able to address those issues, remove some of the guns from the streets, and give, young people the resources to choose a different path, much in the same way that I was able to choose a different path, to give them those sort of opportunities. So those are some of the issues that I care about. Of course, the environment is also very important as well, and I'm looking forward to working to advance policies on those fronts.
I was looking at your website, and you got some endorsement from some Democrats, but
Yes.
you're not to the convention yet, so you're only aspiring. You're not the candidate yet, correct?
Correct. Yep. So the endorsements that I've received so far, they have nothing to do with the convention, right? Like the convention, the people that go to the convention are people that are specifically in my district, and those are going to be voters in my district.
Right.
But the endorsements that I've received, they come from, people that, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them come from people that don't live within the district, right? And those are individual endorsements. And so, for example, the difference would be like Dennis Ja endorses Yakasah Wehyee, right? Which is not necessarily the same thing as saying, out front Liberia or focus on Liberia endorses Yakasah Wehyee, right? The difference there is an individual versus an institution. And so with the party's endorsement, that would be like an institutional endorsement, whereas the endorsements that I've been receiving so far have mostly been individual endorsements. They've been very influential endorsements, and so that's great. And what that demonstrates is that, other policymakers or other influencers within the Minnesota politics see me as someone that they can get behind, someone that can deliver on some of the things that I'm running on, which of course gives me more credibility with the voters.
Wow. And someone who can win.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to get behind the loser, right?
Exactly.
So who
And I've
are
been
your
proud to be to have to have the most endorsements in my race so far.
and who are your opponents, and how big are the endorsement that you're getting right now?
So my opponents, there's a person by the name of Lee Finke. I don't know too much about Lee, but I'm trying to learn a bit more about Lee. There's a person by the name of Dave Thomas that's also running. In terms of their base of support, I can't really speak too much to that, just because I'm running my own race. My focus is on me and my organization. But I feel very confident that we have the infrastructure, we have the support to win the election. But obviously, I would like to get more support from the Liberian community. So yeah, I think that's the one area that I'm looking to expand on. But yeah, I feel pretty confident that we'll be able to win the Democratic endorsement.
So if Liberians that are listening to you now, look in the camera and speak to them directly.
Well, my Liberian people, you better support me. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. But no, to the Liberian community, I really hope that you can see me as a candidate that is from where you're from. I'm from your stock, and obviously, I'm not running to solely represent the Liberian interest, but I am a Liberian, and I think I am working essentially to open doors for, or at least I'm hope to that I'm working to open doors for other aspiring Liberians to maybe not pursue politics per se, but to pursue anything that they want to pursue, and know that they're good enough to do it. And so that's really the story the legacy that I want to leave behind, as it pertains to the Liberian community and just young people in general that are, looking to me as inspiration or looking to me as an example of someone that, had a vision, had a dream, and is pursuing his dreams. And so that's really the message. And I hope that it's a message that the Liberian community and communities, the African community and communities at large can get behind.
Thank you. And if you're watching and want to participate in the conversation, please call the number that is in the ticker there if you have a question or comment. And once again, it is 605-313-6004. The code is 791403. Let me read a few comments here. This one from Mommy Esther Tapimore, also in Minnesota, said, good evening. She also said, this is an amazing story, talking about your story. Cisse Goya said, a qualified representation of Black excellence and African intelligence, Yakasah Wehyee. And Mayfield Deco said, Mr. Jha, please ask him as to how supportive is he to the Liberian community too, because if you are a frequent follower of activities within the Liberian community, I'm sure same will be reciprocated to you. But I wish you good luck, my Liberian brother. Speak to that.
Yeah.
I know I asked you.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, and I think I spoke to it earlier, right? That, when you're doing a PhD, it's very difficult to extend yourself too far, because obviously if you extend yourself too far, you're going to fall behind on the dissertation writing process. But, to the extent possible, I've tried to really make myself available to the Liberian community. The thing about me is that when I go to a lot of Liberian events, but I'm very quiet. I'm kind of in the background. So I'm not necessarily someone that's going to go to an event and sort of publicize that I'm at the event, right? Like when I volunteer, for example, if I go and I volunteer, I'm not going to publicize what I'm doing necessarily. I do, the folks that see me, they see me and we have a lovely conversation. But in general, I'm just not, I don't necessarily try to seek attention and things like that. So when I go to events, if you spot me, that's what's up. Otherwise, I really don't try to draw too much attention to myself, because I just want to go to an event and enjoy the event and not try to make it about me. So I go to events. Like I said, I was a part of the Unico board as a secretary. I worked with UDS giving or supporting Liberians in Liberia, providing them resources, particularly around vocational education, vocational school. So those are some of the activities that I've been involved in with regards to the Liberian community. Of course, with this opportunity at the state level, it would give me an opportunity to collaborate with the Liberian community in a much more robust manner. So yeah.
And finally, you are not representing Liberia, but if you can, what does your representation in the State House mean for Liberian communities, not just Minnesota, but everywhere else?
Yeah, I think it will, in a very meaningful way, establish Liberia as a powerful um, as a powerful voice in in American politics, particularly in Minnesota politics. But because Minnesota has the largest concentration of Liberians outside of Liberia, having a Liberian elected to the Minnesota House in particular will have a profound impact on how Liberians are perceived and treated in the country at large. And obviously, it would be something that Liberians across the world can take great pride in, because now Liberians will know, not by being told, but by being able to observe and see through deeds, right? That it is possible, that anything is possible. Liberia is a country that's been through so much, and we have over the years procured such a negative image. And this, I think, is one of those rare instances in which we can start to combat some of those negative images, and put someone in office that cares about his community, that cares about public service, that will help challenge some of those negative stereotypes and images that Liberians, um, carry with us in different areas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Way, for accepting to be here tonight. We appreciate your time. Now, let me hear your final comments, and please include what are your next steps. What are you going to do next from today going forward as it relates
Yeah.
to your campaign?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I just wanted to, talk directly to the Liberian community. Thank you for the questions, and my phone is always available. My email is always available. Please go on my website, send me an email. I'm more than happy to chat. I guess my final message would really be that we are at a very interesting point in our history as a immigrant community here in America. The Liberian community, we've been here for at least 20 years now, but we don't have a representative at the state level, and that's really sad, because there's so many other immigrant communities that have been able to achieve just that, and much more. And I think this is an opportunity for us as a community to really make some waves in the political arena, and to be taken seriously as a voting bloc. Um, and so because of that, I really want to encourage the community to not just give me their verbal support, because I hear that a lot, but financial support would also be meaningful, because that is how we buy the resources that I mentioned earlier to be able to um, forward the sort of campaign that we need to be able to forward in order to be able to win this election and make the impact that we need to make. And so I will leave with that. In terms of next steps, for me, I'm continuing to make phone calls. I'm continuing to meet with community members, and trying to talk to other organizations out there, um, and and trying to fundraise. Those are, and of course, getting ready for the convention in a couple weeks. Those are the immediate steps. Long term, more of the same: talking to folks, making phone calls, door knocking, and so forth. And so I would also encourage folks who live near the Falcon Heights, St. Paul area to also volunteer for the campaign, because as we go into the convention, we're going to be looking for folks to come and talk to delegates with us. So that's what my ask is, and I look forward to connecting with you all. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for coming. I want to thank our viewers for watching, and those who commented, even those who will watch later. We say thank you so much. Mr. Yakasah Wehyee, you can reach him from his website. That's www.yakasahwehyee.com. Someone was asking you about where you come from. His parents are from the Sannicola area, Yole area, there in Nimba County. He was a 6-year-old refugee in Danane. And so that's a little bit about him. Again, thank you for coming. Please feel free to reach out to us if there's any other message that you want to tell the Liberian community and other people. We will be glad to host you again and pass on that message. Again, this is focused on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia, and you can make this your home. Until then, from all of us at Focus on Liberia, we say thank you so much for watching. I was singing the song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you support Yakasah Wehyee, and even though guys then were having a hard time pronouncing his name, whether you know how to pronounce it or not, we are all Liberians. And whatever you think of Liberians running for public office here in the United States, or your interest is back home to go and serve, we are all Liberians. And it is incumbent upon all of us to do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.